Today I would like to invite you guys to discuss the topic of adoption. I'm going to share with you guys the pros and the cons, and then I would like to open it up for dialogue. I read an article that was called Adoption that was written by Macmillan Social Science Library. I read this specific article because I am adopted. I get a lot of questions about what's adoption, how do you feel about adoption, why were you adopted, and I wanted to read up on this article because I wanted to get more background information. So then I was sharing more information and giving out the accurate information to people who asked me that question. Today, I'd like to explore adoption. You guys may ask, how does this relate to you guys? Well, it relates to you as students or as a mother, but in the future, you guys may have to consider adoption for future reasons, like medical reasons, or maybe someone you know is considering adoption, and they may come to you and ask you for thoughts about adoption. I'm hoping that today you will get a more understanding about what adoption is about. Let me begin with I took a class poll asking, what do you think about adoption? Some of the replies that I got back. One reply I got back was adoption allows couples to have children, meaning that for those who can't have children for medical reasons or anything, adoption gives them that option to have a family that they have dreamed about. Also, adoption gives a child that experience that every child deserves, and that is love. Because as Teresa was saying with the little boy, that little boy was not able to experience that love because of how he was treated by his grandma, which is totally unacceptable, because I really believe that a child should be loved for who they are, no matter what. Also, it gives unfit parents another option other than to have an abortion, because I strongly feel that if you're an unfit parent, you can't support a child, that adoption is the right way to go. Let me begin with going into some pros. Like I said, it gives couples the chance to have a child. Because I know some of you guys in the future may not be able to have children for whatever reasons. I really am hoping that you guys will go towards adoption, even though it may not be your own. And also, young couples. Some of you guys may or may not be in a relationship, but I've had friends who have had abortions and because they just thought, hey, that child would never feel it, or they would never experience it. And adoption, though, would give a chance for another family who cannot have kids, to have a kid by adoption. Now I'm going to begin with the cons of adoption. Adoption, some of you guys may not know, adoptions can take a very, very long time to process, especially if it's an international adoption, because of so much paperwork, the cost, the agencies, everything. Cost is another huge factor that comes into adoption, because you have to do so many things. Paperwork is an issue. You have to get in contact with the birth parents, perhaps, depending on what kind of adoptions you decide to. All right. Now, I want to know what you guys think about adoption.
I want to refer back to your comment about children need love.
Yes.
When I was younger, I was looking it up for the class or something, and I researched and found that children that are given up for adoption in Russia because there's so many, like their babies, they
Right.
tend to not actually survive if they don't get the right touch.
Right.
And I actually know a child that his mother did not touch him for 6 months of his life.
Wow.
He has severe anger issues. He doesn't understand the affection. Like if you kiss him, he thinks it hurts. So I understand the need for love because I've seen what it can actually do to a child. And I think that all children should be loved just like you, so I understand that completely.
What about you, Mrs. Callahan? Because I know you replied back to my poll.
I had told Sam before, I do have 2 children now, but I have this need that there is a daughter out there and she's deaf and I'm the only one who can adopt her because I need to get her an implant. So the first step was me getting my implant, and now that I'm successful and I'm at my year mark, it's building, and I don't know where she is. And even my daughter will talk about her sister. When are we going to get my sister? She could be African, she could be Asian, I have 0 idea. She could be Swedish, I don't know. It's somewhere out there, and it'll build and it'll hit me, and then I'll have my daughter.
What about you, Robert? You've been pretty quiet today. How do you feel about adoption?
I mean, if the person that, you know, is doing the adopting, if they in a situation where they're established and everything, and, you know, I say go for it, but other than that, there's no other point of just jumping out there and just doing it.
While I'm completely 100% for adoption, I think that in certain cases, like for me, I'm 19 and I have a kid, and I was pushed to put him up for adoption and didn't, because I think that if you're capable of taking care of your child, no matter how old you are, you shouldn't give them up for adoption. Because there are so many kids out there who their parents can't take care of them, or their parents won't take care of them, who do need adopted. And for me, if you're giving your child up for adoption just because you don't feel like taking care of them, or because people are telling you you should, then that's one less child who needs to be adopted who isn't.
Do you know what are the requirements to adopt a kid? Like what do you need to have, like?
When you, don't quote me on this exactly, but I do know that when you do adopt a child, whoever the adoption agency will actually come to your house and do house inspections with, like, to make sure it's a safe child environment, make sure that there's no like bugs and stuff, it's a clean environment and a safe environment for the child.
I know China, for example, has really strict adoption policies as well. Like, you have to, I know you have to be like a married couple, like straight couple, and all that. Like, it's really strict and it's really expensive, and that's one of the hardest places to adopt from, despite like the overpopulation and the like crowded adoption centers there.
Exactly, because I know my parents had to go through many house visits, because since I was adopted from South Korea, the agency, even though the agency was in Michigan, I believe, they still wanted to keep on checking out to make sure nothing has changed. Anybody else want to?
I thought it was actually opposite, BJ, from China, that there was such a need that they didn't have stipulations. Because I have a girlfriend who's single and just adopted a little girl from China, and there wasn't the marriage stipulation.
Oh, well, I just got that from a friend of mine who looked up like adoption from China, and she read that, so said, that's this thing where you can't really quote me 100% because that's something I heard.
And that's interesting that we're getting 2 different stories from that particular location, just because I know there's a tremendous need.
Maybe it varies by like parts of China or like different parts of
Different agencies.
Yeah.
Different agencies.
Maybe that's what it
to be
is.
handling the adoptions.
Okay.
Well, in the interest of time, I will wrap it up. I thank you, Ellie. Thank you, Rebecca, for your comments. I really appreciate it. I really hope that today we maybe open up more to adoption after having heard 2 different stories about adoption. And I thank you.
Good job.